often we look at things through the prism of emotion, through the prism of history, through the prism of whatever our own notion is of what's going on in the world, and not through the prism of the facts, the evidence, and what's going on. So today what I hope to accomplish with our Executive Assistant Chiefs, Matt Slinkard and Troy Finner, we want to, and our other Assistant Chiefs are over there special spacing here, distancing, we want to remind the community this police department is here made up and reflective of this community. We are the nation's most diverse community, big city, and I'm proud of the fact that I get the privilege of leading and serving with these men and women a department that is reflective of this community. We're a minority-majority community. Every academy class, when we go in there, the vast majority of our people that we hire, guess where they're from? Houston, Texas. So we're not only a department that's reflective of the community, we're a department that is a homegrown department. If you don't believe me, look at Troy Finner right here. Look at Matt Slinkard, who was raised right here in this area. We are a homegrown department. And so what we want to do today is accomplish a couple things. Update the community, provide the 911 caller. The first caller will be a male gentleman who will talk about what he's seeing. The next caller will be a lady and her son. By her, I can tell you she's an older lady with her son, who will be describing what they are seeing, and they're not calling because they're seeing a police officer out of control. They're not calling because they're seeing a police officer abusing anybody. They're calling because they're worried about this police officer who was by himself trying to control a suspect that was armed, and we will show you what he was armed with, a picture of exactly what he was armed with, and an officer that tried desperately for 5 minutes to control this individual, this deceased suspect, 30-year-old African-American male with some criminal history that we're not going to get into, because his criminal history has nothing to do with the objective reasonableness of the use of force. But I want the community to listen, and then I want people to take a time out and put themselves in the position of a police officer, a one-year African-American police officer that has less than 2 years on the job, and start looking at things through the prism of what's going on. The officer by themselves telling dispatch, step it up. This guy's not listening to me. He's got a gun. I can see the gun. I can see it in his hoodie. And from there, we will open it up to questions. Does that make sense to everybody? So we want to provide some context. Now, I have talked at the scene with a young lady who indicates she's and others at the scene indicated she's the common-law wife of the deceased suspect. She was going to come in today to review the video of the officer-involved body-worn camera video, and she had to cancel. But she was going to come in earlier today, and she had to cancel. And so we're going to go ahead and first we're going to play the first 911 call, where this individual male actually will talk about what he's seeing, and then we'll play the second 911 call, and then we'll give you an update. Everybody ready for that? Okay, thank you. Volume up, please.
2020, 18:20 and 33 seconds.
It's 911. Do you need medical police or fire? Hey, that's a guy in front of. Do you need medical police or fire? Emergency. Do you need medical assistance, police assistance, or fire assistance? Police assistance. What's the address of the emergency?
In front of Popeyes on Cullen. I don't know the exact address. I'm driving down the street. There's a guy in the middle of the street with a gun in his hand.
And then there's what's the cross street? No cross street.
Noah and Scott.
Noah and Scott. You spell Noah for my records?
Noah.
You said it's near the Popeyes, correct?
Yeah.
What's your callback number? What's your phone number?
You got a gray hoodie on and some black basketball shorts. Got a little puppy with him.
What's your name? And he was just in the middle of the street with the firearm?
Yeah. Yeah, he's walking across the street. He ain't waving, but he got it in his hand. I guess he's walking to the bus stop, and there were people at the bus stop. They ran away from the bus stop. I was sitting at the light.
Are you aware that they appear to have mental issues?
I guess he kind of dressed like he might do.
Yes or no?
No. I'm just at the light. I was just at the light.
One moment. Is the handgun secured in a holster?
No, he had it in his hand. It's black.
And the person that had the gun, was he black, white, Hispanic, or Asian?
Black male, kind of.
How old did he look? Can you tell how old he was?
35, 36.
How tall was he?
About 5'11",
Light, medium, or heavy build?
or medium build.
Okay. And I have to ask this question, do you know if anyone at the locations experiencing any flu-like or coronavirus symptoms?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, you stated that he walked towards the bus stop away from Popeye?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. One moment.
He got a little puppy with him, so it should be hard to find.
All right, do you remember what his direction of travel was? It was just towards the bus stop. That was the last time you saw, correct?
He said at the bus stop with the gun in his hand that made everybody else get up.
Okay.
I don't know. He just move around. He wasn't pointing at nobody, but still, he got his eye.
No, right. All right, a police unit will be dispatched to the area of Noah Street and Scott Street. Is this correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop, don't play. The only things that we've redacted here are the names and contact numbers of the 911 callers for their privacy and their security. The next 911 caller actually was, my understanding, is in a car watching everything go on right by where this occurred. It is a mother and I believe a son. I'm getting their ages here in a minute and I'll provide them to you. It does get a little graphic in terms of profanity being spoken by the son who's in the same vehicle. You will see him very loudly. And again, they're calling because of what they're seeing with an officer by himself. And I think the audio will speak for itself. But it does speak to the fact that this is not an us versus them police department. This is a police department that tries to be appropriate. And this is a police department that has a tremendous amount of support from our community. But we're also a police department that want to be as transparent as possible, and a police department that that is proud of our relationship with this community. And we have to speak up, because yesterday at my press conference, a reporter from the Chronicle was telling me that somebody was saying that this man was shot while his hands were up, which is an absolute lie. We know that because we have everything on video. And so we're not going to stand by idly as bad rumors and misinformation, some of it driven by emotion and some of it just driven by people that want to tear apart the fabric of the relationship between our police department and the communities that need us most, which is disproportionately communities of color and poor communities, including poor white folks. I mean, it is what it is in terms of the socioeconomics of society in our nation, and we're not going to stand by and just let people make stuff up so they can tear apart the fabric of our relationship. And so with that, we'll go ahead and roll, but again, keep in mind there'll be some profanity.
Thursday, May 14, 2020, 18:30 and 08 seconds. Please say 911, any medical, police, or fire.
I also need help. They're trying to jump him, ma'am, at the corner of Porter. A police officer got a gun out, ma'am. They're trying to take
Porter and what street?
Porter and Side Street. Hurry up.
Okay, well, we are. And stop for my records, please.
In front of the fireplace. In front of the fire department.
Fire station, do you know what station number that is?
I don't know.
Okay.
He at the bus stop, ma'am. You got the gun, ma'am. He really need help, ma'am. He really need help.
Police, Carolina, have a police unit is en route to Porter and Scott Crest. Scott Street. Is this correct? I understand that. We have noted that already. What is it?
Talking, baby. He tried to shoot him.
Okay, that's an HPD officer, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, stand by one moment. Is he in uniform? Ma'am, is he in uniform? Ma'am, is he in uniform? Ma'am. Okay, and how many suspects are there? Can you walk away from that man? How many suspects are there? One moment. Stand by one moment, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, you said Porter Street. Is that Scott Crest? Is that Scott Crest? Ma'am.
I'm here, ma'am.
Is that Scott Crest?
I don't know, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Thank you. What is they're on scene? They're on scene? Okay. Okay. You're welcome.
Okay, ma'am. They just got on me.
All right. Thank you. They got the suspect?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand.
They had to shoot him because he just coming up on that officer.
Okay. And the suspect, was he white, black, Hispanic, or Asian?
In a gray jacket.
And about how old did he look?
My 30-some.
Was he tall, medium, or short?
Kind of tall.
Okay. Was he heavy built, medium built, or thin?
No, ma'am, he's real small.
Okay. Okay. All right, ma'am. And what is your name?
You're so welcome. I'm sorry they had to have, but that's because they have a choice, ma'am.
Yes, I understand.
Can everybody understand everything? We will release that. We'll be able to release the files for you all. But what you saw is real. It is raw. That's a 53-year-old woman that's calling in, worried about this officer. That's her, I believe, her son, or a relative of hers. I'm not sure what the relationship is. What is it? A friend in the car that was yelling, shoot him. Yelling to the police officer to shoot him, using the expletives. And that's not how we decide whether we use deadly force or not. That's not, but it does bring some perspective as to how witness that was right there was seeing this and was recognizing that the threat that the officer faced. And at the end, you heard that lady saying what she said. I think it speaks for itself. This lady's 53 years old, and I don't have an age on the friend, but they both are witnesses to this. We have determined that the weapon that the suspect has is, as you saw and heard on the first call from the caller talking about the Popeyes. There's a man with a gun. He's walking around with the gun. He's got the gun in his hand. He didn't say anything other than there's a man with a gun. And the gun has been determined to be a power line by Daisy 340 177 caliber 4.5 millimeter BB gun. This gun is an exact replica of a 9mm pistol, and this is the actual firearm that that individual had yesterday. And as you can see from here, from the 911 caller, it's a man with a gun, and this is the actual weapon that the subject had. Our officer spent close to 5 minutes using a lot of restraint with this man that he sees the gun on him. The officer backed up and tried to utilize his verbal judo, tried to get the man to comply, got on the radio a couple of times, tell him step it up. This man's not listening. He's got the gun. I can see it right on him. And once, as the backup units finally arrived and they get out of the cars and come up, that's when the man makes the move forward, and you can see it clearly on the video, goes towards going for the gun. And that's when one officer, the officer that had spent almost 5 minutes trying to do everything he could to not discharge his firearm, discharged several rounds. When the video gets released in the future, I can tell you that HFD that was across the street was, the community will be able to say that the fire engine was already staged right just beside the scene. You can actually see the fire engine. After the individual was shot by the officers and they were able to clear him, we have video for those that are saying there was no gun, there was no weapon. This is the gun. And we have video of our officers going up. Initially, they weren't going up because they couldn't, he still had a gun. And then the female officer, it's on the center divider, says, I see the hands, I can see the hands. And at that point, when they can see the hands, they came up and made a tactical approach. And we have the officer, one of the officers actually recovering the handgun from the man's body. We also have that officer go back to the car and actually open the door and actually take out this actually has a magazine that comes out. And you can go get one of these. They're an exact replica, takes it out. I'm not sure that officer even realized he was dealing with the BB gun at first. He says, I can't get it to lock back. Well, that's because it's a replica of a 9mm. It's not a 9mm, but that's how realistic these things are. Our officer, as you can imagine, was shaken yesterday. He has got less than 2 years on the job, and his first initial is J as in John, but that is not his first name. I'm not going to give his first name for safety reasons at this time. And his last name is Goff, Goff. And again, has a little under 2 years on the job. Our suspect what was his age? 30 years of age. 30 years of age. And the ME, I checked a little while ago, has not released his name, so we won't either because we have to wait for the ME to do that. So again, here's the weapon. You heard what the call was in terms of the threat that the officer was driving to, in terms of the threat that was reported to the police department by this community. And you saw the perception of two independent witnesses in that call from a 53-year-old lady and her friend, a male friend that you heard, that kept urging the officer to shoot him. And if you listen closely, you'll hear her say, "Please don't let him hurt, don't let him hurt you, officer," because of those two were showing concern for the police officer based on the actions of the suspect. I'm not playing this to try to justify anything, to not change any minds, but I am playing this and releasing this to make sure people know the facts, to make sure people, as much as we can, while trying to maintain the investigative process, that's why we're not releasing the video yet, to people to understand and look at things through the prism of these people in the car and how they're reacting. Imagine being that one officer by yourself for nearly 5 minutes, trying not to shoot a guy that just would not have any of it. And at the end, when he went for his gun, that's when the one officer discharged. So with that, the investigation continues. We have our Special Investigations Unit, obviously our Internal Affairs Division, and the DA's Office, Civil Rights Division, are conducting the investigation along with the Houston Forensic Science Center. So with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Any idea what his deal was? I mean, was he having mental issues or was he on drugs?
Someone on the scene was saying that he had been drinking, but we have no idea. I mean, how do you try to make sense of behavior that doesn't make sense? That there's no making sense to that. You just I don't know how to make sense of an incident like this. And my heart goes out to everyone involved that loved this man, this deceased, but also to that 53-year-old woman that what you can hear on her voice, that was impactful, what she had to witness because of the actions of this individual. And my heart goes out to the officer that tried for nearly 5 minutes, trying not to have to use deadly force, trying desperately not to employ deadly force, and at the end he does when the man finally makes the move for his firearm.
Chief, perhaps you haven't been made aware of and perhaps have seen cell phone video shot from other witnesses out on scene. And I'm asking for a point of clarification as to who fired and when, because in the video, or at least some video that we've seen, we see when backup arrived, and a few seconds later we see multiple guns fired.
No, you're not seeing. I don't know what you're seeing. I don't know what video. I can tell you that I've seen the videos of our officers. Only one weapon was discharged. That was discharged by the initial officer, and no other officer discharged their weapons. And we've got body-worn cameras on everybody.
Do you know when that video would be released?
We're going to let the process take its course like we always do with a grand jury and with the DA's office. And again, I would never want to release a video without the family of the deceased seeing it first. So that's just...
Did you reschedule? You said
She hasn't rescheduled yet. I haven't heard. I'm worried about her because there's weather.
Right, yeah.
She didn't have transportation. We offered to go pick her up, and she said, "No, I'll get myself there." And we haven't heard. So I'm really concerned about her with this really bad storm that we have out here right now.
In addressing the man's behavior, you said a few seconds ago, a couple minutes ago, there is no making sense of how he was described to be behaving out there.
Yeah.
The wife of this individual says that he had some mental health issues in the past. His mother passed away while he was in prison. He hadn't gotten over that emotionally.
Yeah.
And they had talked about committing him to some type of help, but they just didn't get a chance to do it. As far as the investigation is concerned right now, where is that fact, that aspect?
Yeah, I don't believe that as of now we have found any indication that he has been identified as a CIT, a mental health, a consumer, someone with mental health history, mental health issues. But you know, there's mental health is a challenge in society. A lot of people that have mental health challenges that have not been identified by mental health professionals. But as far as I know, as of now, we haven't found any indication in our system that he was mental health. Now, I will say that one of the young ladies that at the scene was telling us that he had been drinking, and he said, "I'm going home." And one of the things that he kept telling the officer, in addition to, using the N-word, "I'm not, what are you going to do?" As he continued to advance on the officer, he just said, "I'm going home. I'm going home," which leads me to think that the outcome was somehow one that he was trying to force, and sadly, it happened. So I can't speak to his mindset. Toxicology will be part of the medical examiner's report that will screen him for alcohol, drugs, and medications, and they'll be part of the report back to the grand jury and part of our investigation.
You can't speak to his mindset, but you think they may be made an attempt or something.
Well, I mean, when a police officer's got you at gunpoint and you have a gun, and if you're carrying this, right, and a police officer is ordering you to get on the ground, at one time this officer was so intent on trying to just control him till backup got there, he said, "Okay, then fine, sit back on the bus bench." So I mean, this is how far that officer went with the guy that he knew that he could see was armed with this. and you're not complying, and you're advancing on that officer, and the officer's going to, it continues to warn you, if you keep coming at me, I'm going to shoot you. Don't, get on the ground. I think he even said, please. I think that, do you think that's normal behavior? I don't know. I can't say if it's normal or abnormal. I just don't think it makes sense. I can't make sense out of it, and I can't read his mind, but I do know neither can the officer. All the officer can do is respond to his actions, and that officer, the restraint that officer used, I can go on the internet right now and show you a lot of videos where very similar cases, officers fired a lot sooner, and I can show you videos where officers, because action, we know that one of the issues we deal with, actions beat reactions, and we can show you videos where officers have been shot because they hesitated. You can find them yourselves on the internet. Plenty of examples. Anything else?
Are you seeing more cases just, not I mean just with police officers, but calls that you get due to, we're in a crazy time. This is kind of weird historically. Are you seeing where it's like weighing on people and maybe they're doing things because of it?
Wendy's here, Wendy Bainbridge, who has our mental health division, and I know that the calls related to issues have gone up in terms of some of our mental health calls across the country with some of the units. And, tempers are short right now across the country. People are frustrated. This individual, you talked to his wife talking about, his mom passed away while he's in prison, his dad's in prison. Who knows? But it's something that we pride ourselves in the department as being a location where the Department of Justice and the federal government, we are actually a learning site for mental health. We probably set the bar higher than any other place. We're known across the nation. But at the end of the day, officers, when they're confronted with a person that's armed with what they believe to be a semi-automatic pistol, that despite 5 minutes of pleading and a lot of restraint, the guy goes for the gun. Officers don't have to wait till the gun comes out and they're getting shot or shot at before they can defend them. That's just not the way the law works. And if you were confronted with this, what would you think? Just ask yourself. That's what the public needs to see. You got to put yourselves in the shoes of those officers. What would you think? So, anyway, I think that was all we wanted to cover today.
One last question,
Yeah.
Chief, just real quick. Several witnesses out there, and you addressed earlier folks out there who said that they didn't see a weapon. You say that that's the weapon that was out there, so I won't ask about that. But they say that they believe the matter could have been handled differently. They also say that they are not people who don't believe in the Houston Police Department. So when you spoke earlier about some decisions or feelings or dispositions being driven by emotions, what do you say to those people who say, we're not anti-police, but we don't think the situation was handled properly?
Yeah, I think that everyone is entitled to an opinion. But we have to be guided by the law, by the evidence, and by the facts. And I think that when everyone looks at the totality of this situation, they're going to have to draw their own conclusions. Having said that, the investigation continues, but he's seen all the video, or the vast majority of our videos. Chief Slinkard has seen it, 34 years of experience. I don't believe in setting up a community for false expectations, okay? I just don't believe in that. I think that that is the worst thing you can do as a leader. We've seen this incident from our body-worn cameras, and I can tell you everything's very clear. We know the law, we know policy, we know procedures, we know training, and we can either agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, I am guided and I am formed by the law. And based on what we've seen, unless we're missing something, because we still got a lot of other things to look at, I don't want the community to think that there's going to be an indictment against this police officer. I just don't see it happening. That's a very far bridge, just a really, a bridge that's far to cross, that there's no way that I see that happening. A lot of chiefs will say it's under investigation for the next 8 months and not say anything, but in this one, because it's all there, I'm just going to tell you, I just don't see that happening. And but yesterday, there was some guy saying he had his hands up. And one thing is have an opinion, because people can disagree as to what the officer's rights are, because it's their opinion, even though we're going to follow the law. But it's another thing to just make stuff up. And when somebody's saying he has his hands up, I've got a problem with that. Because that's either someone that is just trying to tear apart the fabric of our relationship with this community, and I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm just not going to put up with it. It's just not right. The community that needs us most is the communities that are impacted most by crime, and disproportionately those communities are communities of color and poor communities, including white communities. And so that's just the way I operate. And you know what? I call them as I see them, and I'm here to lead. Sometimes the union goes crazy on me because they want to run the department. Sometimes the community doesn't like it. But the one thing I have to be guided by is the law, the facts, and the evidence. That's it. Because when you start doing one of these to see which way the wind's blowing, then everybody knows it. And guess what? You lose all credibility. And you will never see me looking to see which way the wind's blowing. That's not what we get paid to do. So that's all I got. Anything in Spanish? Bueno, sabemos que tuvimos anoche un incidente de uso de fuerza a nuestros oficiales en la SCAT, y lo que escucharon es la primera llamada, es la llamada del 911 de un servidor que llamó que una persona afroamericana, hombre, que como 30 años, tenía un arma de fuego en su mano y estaba amenazando a la comunidad. Un oficial de 27 años de edad, afroamericano también, que lleva menos de 2 años en la policía, llegó a la escena. Y lo que oyeron en la segunda llamada del 911, una señora de 53 años que estaba en su automóvil, ahí mismo estaba este incidente con un amigo, no sé su edad todavía, y esas personas llamaron al 911, número uno, la primera llamada para reportar a una persona amenazando a la comunidad con un arma de fuego, y número dos, una señora de 53 años y su pasajero para suplicar que se apuren porque el policía estaba en peligro. Yo no voy a, ustedes pueden decirle a la comunidad qué fue lo que ocurrió. La pistola que tenía el sospechoso encima es esta pistola aquí, que es una réplica de un 9 milímetros semiautomática, y desgraciadamente es el oficial por 5 minutos suplicó que el sospechoso le haga caso y que se pongan en el piso para poder detenerlo. El sospechoso, desgraciadamente, por 5 minutos no hizo caso, estaba diciendo malas palabras, avanzando contra el oficial. El oficial tomó tanto esfuerzo para no tener que disparar, pero desgraciadamente, cuando llegaron las otras patrullas, después de casi 5 minutos solito el oficial, el sospechoso fue a buscar la arma de fuego así y el oficial disparó. Dense de cuenta que el departamento de bomberos está ahí mismo, al frente de la escena lo que esto ocurrió, y los bomberos ya estaban ahí cuando el sospechoso los tiros le dieron. Inmediatamente le dieron auxilio médico, lo llevaron al hospital y desgraciadamente falleció. Nos dijo una señora que dice que es la esposa de él, que él estaba, su mente estaba con mucha emoción porque había perdido a su mamá cuando estaba en la prisión, el sospechoso, y desgraciadamente cuando el oficial estaba dando las órdenes, malas palabras le decía al oficial, me voy para la casa, y no se estaba hablando del cielo o qué. Al fin del día esto es una tragedia muy fea para todos, pero especialmente para la señora de 53 años, que si escuchan bien esa llamada del 911, ella llamó y su amigo diciendo al oficial, dispárale, no deje que te mate, porque tenían temor para el oficial. Y esa llamada está muy clara. Así que esta es el arma de fuego, que es un BB gun, desgraciadamente, pero es una réplica del 9 milímetros. Y al fin del día tenemos que darle esta información a la comunidad porque queremos la transparencia cuando lo más posible. ¿Ok? ¿Cualquier otra pregunta? Okay, guys, thank you very much. Be careful. We are expecting some potential flooding in the next 24 hours. Please be careful out there, especially overnight in the Houston, but especially north of Houston as well. Okay? We have all our resources out, pre-deployed, and we'll be ready to respond. But remember, turn around, don't drown. We don't need to get you hurt out here tonight in this weather. Thank you, everybody. And you guys are you guys going to want the file?
Yes,
The
if
file?
we can get it.
Everybody get this?
Yeah.
Does anybody need this anymore?
No.
How do you get the